Appreciate that. Johnny Mac, let's move into our next segment here. We've had a great show so far. Next thing I want to do is I do want to do the position grades, but I'm going to do it backwards here. What is the worst position group on the Eagles? I think we all know what John's going to say. If you've listened to Birds 365 for more than 10 minutes this offseason, you know what he's going to say. The worst position group, John, on the Eagles is what?
Safety.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, safety.
Wait a second. So I just teased anybody who's listened to Burns 365 for 10 minutes, and the position I had in my head was completely and utterly wrong.
Yeah, you were thinking edge defender, but they have more depth at edge defender than they have at safety.
All right. So let me write these out. All right. Position groups rankings here. John, worst is safety.
Yeah.
Do you think
it's tremendous? They have one proven player at safety. And everything else is up in the air.
Yeah, that's true.
And because he was undrafted, a lot of people don't even believe in Reed, but I do. But a lot of people don't. But they have one proven player at safety, and everything else is just crossing your fingers. So, yeah, I think overall, and there's not a lot of. Some people are excited by Lewis Seen because of what he was in college. And I warned him on that. He's not even going to make the team. When you start talking about Makuba, I think he's a good fit for big steep bench with the traits and what he wants, but he's the 64th overall pick in the draft. I think there's a lot of people just assuming he's going to step in. Sidney Brown, the exact opposite. I think he's not a fit for what Vic wants. And then you start talking about the Tristan McCullums and the Andre Sams of the world, which is, you don't want to rely on that for 17 games. So I think they have more, even though I'm concerned about edge rusher, they have more insurance policies at edge rusher.
Yeah, that makes sense. Safety is a big question mark for sure. No doubt about it. So safety, worst one. Do you think they added safety, John?
No, I don't.
I don't either. Second worst, John, I guess you're going edge there?
Yes. Similar conversation. I mean, you're counting on upside with Jalix Hunt, and I'm more excited about Jalix Hunt than I was pre-spring, where I think he showed some things. He's playing with some confidence. He's just got great natural ability. Sometimes you throw guys like that in the pool and they swim. And I'm much higher on that. A little bit higher on Josh Uche as well because of Lane and his comments, and Zach Bond to a certain degree. Didn't see a ton from Ojulari, but it's not that big of a deal. They're NFL players. They can at least hold down the fort, but you might get an Ndakwe situation with Ojulari because people are, well, he had 6 sacks with the Giants. I mean, okay. What does that mean? I don't want to compare him to Ndakwe after I just buried Ndakwe. But
Uche kind of has that too. Remember, Uche had like the 9 sacks or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, he had 1 year. He had 11 1 year. Ndakwe had a bunch of big sack years, but limited player from all around standpoint. So you have NFL players, and then Vic, when you talk about Patrick Johnson and good versatile player, Antoine Powell-Ryland, we talked about the college production, but maybe not the traits to stand out. And then from there, Vic called them the other guys, KJ Henry, O'Shawn Mathis, players like that. They got the other guys' treatments. So, yeah, I edge rusher's kind of shaky.
We're ranking the Eagles position groups worst to best right now so far. Johnny Mac had safety is the worst. Second worst was edge rusher. John, third on the list from worst to best. Worst to first. We're going backwards here. So you had safety, then you had edge. Where do you see next? I will say this, and I don't know if you agree with this. You can confirm or deny whether you agree. I think this is where there is a little bit of a demarcation line where they get better. All the position groups get better from here, but I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the next group is going to piss people off, but it has nothing to do with the guy on the top of the.
I know. I already know. Yep, I know where you're going.
It has everything to do with the guys on the bottom of the depth after him on the depth chart. And again, the Eagles are a very talented team, but after Saquon, running back is not good.
Yeah.
Will Shipley, I think, is better than people think, but he's got to prove himself. AJ Dillon just did not look explosive in off-season workouts. And we'll see if he can get back from the stinger. And then you start talking about, guys who undrafted free agents and Montrell Johnson and Shunderick Powell, Keelan Robinson, they picked up on waivers from one of the worst teams in football, Jacksonville. Remember, they're 32nd on the waiver wire. So nobody wanted Keelan Robinson. And he's more of a kick returner anyway. They already moved Avery Williams from running back to wide receiver, and he hasn't even practiced. He's just a returner. Yeah, running back is thin. But, of course, it's not going to matter at all. Saquon's out there. But, boy, if you forget about a major injury. If you got to do without Saquon for a week or two,
yeah,
you're a vastly different team. A vastly different team. And that's even if Will plays well and gets better and AJ does show like he's back. You're not even in the same stratosphere at that position.
Boy, if Kevin Petullo's having nightmares about anything this offseason as he preps for the season, it's that. Lose Saquon Barkley. What does this offense become, John, if they did lose Saquon Barkley? It's going to be a lot of A.J. Brown and a lot of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, you got to shift overnight to relying more on the passing game. No doubt about it. Even with that offensive line. I mean, those guys aren't even, Miles Sanders. Forget about Miles and DeAndre. Probably not even Kenny Gainwell. Yeah, some issues.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So running back third, again, ranking the position groups worst to first. What do you have after
by the way, that's an underrated thing. In August, if things are going negatively, they might bring in another running back.
Yeah, that's a good take, actually. Yeah, I meant to ask you that on all positions. Safety, you said no. Edge, you feel like they bring in somebody?
Well, all of that, and if I would frame it, like if they show up in July and they're deep in August and Makuba's not coming around and Sydney's, that can change things.
Yeah, right. Well, they can always change. I'm not holding you to your feet to the fire on these.
Yeah.
Just your general feeling.
But I think they're comfortable for now. I think they're comfortable. They saw enough from Makuba to think that they're going to get him prepared. And Vic's very good at that. So understandably, but yeah, running back might be.
Running back, I'll put maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe. And then edge, you want to go yes, no, maybe.
On bringing somebody in?
For an edge, yeah.
No, they're not going to bring somebody in. They're not going to bring somebody in, period, unless things go really poorly at a certain position. Their whole offseason has been discipline, more cost effective. Yeah. They're not going to blow that up until they have to blow it up. And that,
but you can get cheaper options here, maybe. So, remember last year we got that. I think almost every year, though, John, in the last 4 years, we've acquired a player.
Yeah, but even so, if there is an edge rusher out there who's on the last year of his rookie deal and hasn't gotten an opportunity somewhere else and could potentially, and you keep freezing up on my end. I don't know if it's others or just me, but I'll keep going.
Hey, it's my internet's kicking.
But if you can find that player, then you're just in the same boat. If he actually explodes into a CJ Gardner-Johnson type season, but at edge rusher, well, then you got to pay that guy $30 million. So I don't know. I think they're going to stand pat and try to get through it, but we'll see. I think all their eggs are in the Alex Hunt basket right now because he's here for 3 more years at a very cost-effective rate. And they'll probably extend him if he plays really well before that 3rd year, but you get the point.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, after running back, John, where are you going?
I'm doing this on the fly.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do it backwards. I threw another wrench in there for you.
Well, I think there's a lot sort of jumbled up because I got the top 3 kind of locked in. Then it's just kind of jumbled mishmash. So I'm going to go. And again, this is understand because the Eagles are so good and so talented. This is basically all related to depth. So don't lose your minds. But I'm going to go. Corner. Obviously, it has nothing to do with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. But then after that, obviously Ringo. I'm personally very high on him, but completely unproven. Adoree Jackson. I like him as a veteran insurance player. I don't like him if he's got to play a lot. And then after that, you're talking about Eli Ricks or Mac McWilliams. And if you really want to go down to the AJ Woodses and BJ Mays and Tariq Castro Fields of the world, kind of shaky. If there's no Isaiah Rodgers to come save you. But I mean, it's hard to find players like that who are, capable backups who can come in and play at a high level. Not bad.
Could Eli Ricks be that guy? That Isaiah Rodgers role type of guy?
Boy, I don't see it. I mean, I'm thinking if you keep 5 corners, right? You have to keep. Obviously, you're keeping Quinyon, Cooper, Kaylee, and Adoree. Those are locked in. I did my 100%ers club on Sports Illustrated. Everybody can check that out at si.com. But last year I picked 37 guys that 100% chance to make the roster, barring an act of God, injury, blah, blah, blah. I was 37 of 37 because 100% means 100%, not 99%, not 98. Like Jahan Dotson, he's 98%. Kyle McCord, he's probably 99%, but they're not 100%ers. I mean, no doubt about it, going to be on this team September 4th. And I think there were 34, so it was a little bit down this year. So if you're keeping 4 corners to get back 5 corners, all right, the 5th guy's got to be Mac McWilliams, a 5th-round pick, or Eli Ricks, a guy you've kept around for 2 years. That's like Sophie's choice for Howie. He doesn't want to cut a draft pick. So can he keep 6? You can keep 6. A lot of teams keep 6 corners. But again, Eli Ricks has been here for 2 years, didn't play at all last season, played a little bit as a rookie because they had all those injuries at the slot, but was completely out of position. Here's the problem with Eli Ricks. He's 6'2". He's very undersized from a weight standpoint, very light, so he's not going to help you in run support. But the biggest problem is he can't run. He ran a 4.6 coming out. He's got
not
good
cut it at corner.
Yeah, outside, especially outside the numbers.
Yeah, right.
That's my problem with Eli Ricks. I don't think he can run to be a long-term part, and I think this might be the end of the road for him. Now, could he make the team? Yeah, I'm not sold on Mac McWilliams, but I did like what I saw from Mac in the spring. You could tell he's a much better athlete. But yeah, that's Soapy's choice for Howie. For whatever reason, he loves Eli Ricks.
So we got, if you're keeping 5 or 6, we got obviously Quignon, Cooper, Keely's 3, Adori's
Adoree.
4.
Yeah.
And
then
then
5 is Mac or Eli.
Well, Mac, they're not going to cut Mac. They just drafted the guy. They're not going to cut Mac. I see
Well,
what you're saying.
yeah, you got to pick one of them. But you can keep 6. You can go the other way. You can say, well, I don't have. You're probably going to keep 10 as a whole. We just talked about safety. There's no need to keep Andre Sam or Lewis Seen. So if you keep only 4 safeties, you can keep 6 corners. So they can go about it that way.
Right.
But Andre Sam's a guy that people don't talk about, that he's going to help you on special teams. And that's another thing. Eli doesn't help on special teams. He's not a good special teams player. It's bizarre. He's been kept here for 2 years and he doesn't contribute on special teams. Clearly they like his ball skills, but I'm like, how does that translate? Unless he magically got faster behind the scenes. I don't know how it translates. Sometimes you got to give up on your pet projects.
Yeah, that's true. It's maybe one thing you could hold against Howie right now. Not much you can hold against it, but that one. All right, John. After cornerback, where are you going?
I'm gonna go tight end, which is actually a lot better this year overall, depth wise, because they brought in.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear you say that.
They brought in a bunch of guys who, probably belong in the NFL. They're probably third tight ends. And I still think it'll be Dallas and Grant, and then it'll be. And they only kept 2 tight ends at the start of last season. But now they have our guy Harrison Bryant. They have Kylan Granson. Nick Muse was one of the most impressive players in the spring. And E.J. Jenkins, who is sort of the guy. I mean, they've all passed E.J. Jenkins, all 3 of those guys. So they're much better from a depth standpoint. And this is sort of the demarcation line when you say, yeah, that's not bad, tight end this time, depth-wise. So by no means is this bad positioning, because I think from this point forward, all the positions are pretty, at least have some decent depth.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so after tight end, then where are you going?
Then I'm going quarterback.
Really?
And the only reason it's down that low is because nobody's proven past Jalen. I mean,
I feel like the backups are better this year, but maybe that's just my bias.
oh yeah, that's. I mean, Kenny Pickett. I don't know.
Yeah,
why
true. No, Kenny Pickett was a first
I
round player.
mean-
Yeah, he was a good player. That's wrong. You're right.
And he's got a lot of experience, a lot of starting. And but by the way, when he was forced to play, he played well.
Yeah.
Even with a broken rib.
I
Now,
like the mix though, John. Not
well,
I like
people
McMullen, but I like McCord and I like McKay.
well, people like Tanner McKee because of what they've seen in the preseason. But again, it's unproven in week 18 where they just ran the same play over and over again. But and then he had 4 passes at the end of the Dallas game, I think. But yeah, I'm high on Kyle McCord, but he's also a 6th-round pick and a rookie.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not.
I can't put too much stock into that.
Yeah.
Yet.
And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, even, there are a lot of teams that could use a third quarterback. That Dorian Thompson. So again, it's not, but it's completely unproven after Jalen Hurts. Last year, that wasn't the case. Whether people like Kenny or not, that wasn't the case. So I like it. I like the upside. Me specifically of Kyle McCord, because I like the processing and the accuracy. But I know others are high on Tanner McKee. Well, I like the upside there as well. But it's hard to say, oh, I'm confident. If the Eagles had to play a game with either of those two, like right away, I would not be that confident.
Now, if Kellen Moore tells Mickey Loomis to get on the phone and get Tanner McKee to Philly or to New Orleans, and they send over a fourth, are you taking that deal or are you out on that deal?
No, not taking that. No, they need a backup. And they
All right.
know, like, that's a lot to put on Kyle McCord's plate as a rookie. It's a lot to put
Do you
on.
think McCord has officially jumped DTR, Dorian Thompson, Robinson?
Yeah, that's not even a competition.
Yeah, guy's done. Sorry, Dorian.
No, he'll be here on the practice squad unless he gets
done.
claimed on waivers. They'll keep him. They'll keep him around.
All right, so quarterbacks. What's after quarterbacks then, John? I mean, I kind of agree with your QB take there after you explained it. What's after QBs for you?
Defensive tackle, interior defensive line.
Yeah, this is where they're all getting better. You can tell.
Well, I think they're all getting better at tight end. So we've already crossed the because I think the depth is much better at tight end. I probably should have put tight end ahead of quarterback, but whatever. I'm doing it on the fly.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about Jordan Davis a lot. Good player. Jalen Carter's a great player. Moro Jomo, I'm very high on and proved himself. I think people forget that he proved himself as an effective player last year. And I just think he's getting better. Ty Robinson, good upside. And then even behind that, guys like Thomas Booker, nobody talks about. I think he's an NFL player. The Eagles are high on Gabe Hall. And be careful, Byron Young is a guy they stashed last year. Was a third-round pick, I think, in 2023 from Alabama. Vic mentioned him unprompted the other day. And I noticed that. And they got him playing nose tackle snaps as Jordan Davis's backup. Don't sleep on him. They're better on the interior defensive line than I think people realize. And they're still deep. So I think that's a solid position overall.
There you go. So after DT, now we're like basically toward the very top, getting closer to the top. So these are basically the best position groups. But after DT, John, what do you got?
Wide receiver.
There you go.
I think they're much deeper wide receiver than they typically are in the fashion that people think of receivers. In other words, I think they got people that can actually play the receiver position, which I don't necessarily think they had last year. Now, a lot of that depends on, I think Jahan Dotson is a good player and people don't realize it, and he'll be here the entire spring and summer, which he wasn't last year. So I think there'll be a better sort of rapport with him and Jalen. Best third wide receiver, say it all the time in the Nick Sirianni era. Plus, I think Terrace Marshall and Danny Gray can play receiver. And then they have the unique guys, Johnny Wilson, who can block, Anaya Smith, who can return kicks. So I think they're much deeper than they typically are at receiver. And obviously at the top is off the charts with AJ and Devontae. But I think they're much deeper than they typically are.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting, John, is that AJ Brown and Anaya Smith have really seemed to taken a liking to each other. They're in like all each other's videos. Anais was at all of AJ's celebrations this year. It's pretty cool, pretty interesting setup there. It's good stuff though. Good mentor if you're Anais Smith. Listen to that dude. All right. Listen to that guy, Anais. That guy will teach you some things. John, after wide receiver, what do you got?
Okay, this is not short term, but long term. The Eagles are incredibly deep at linebacker. Zach Ball, it's amazing because if we did this last year, the linebacker would have been last.
Yeah. How many position groups do we have left after linebacker?
Just one.
Just one. All right. I thought I had that right, but I just want to make sure.
Which number one should be obvious to
Yes,
any
very
Eagles
obvious.
fan. But you have Zach Bond, who's an all-pro. You have Nakobe Dean when he gets healthy, who had a phenomenal season. You have the first round pick, who should have been probably top 15 if he wasn't injured, Jahad Campbell. You have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who I think is emerging and going to be a good player and will play early in the season. And even Smile Monday Jr., I think, is a good day 3 pick, especially for what the Eagles want. Very lengthy, almost like a poor man's Jahad Campbell as far as the coverage and the length part of it. So linebackers very strong once they get like week 8 on, very strong to the point where it's like, well, how are you getting these guys on? Imagine if Trotter plays well early in the season. How you keeping them on the field? They're very good at linebacker. Not early, but right now they're precarious. You know, when Zach Bond sat out, he had general soreness of minicamp, and he sat out, and it was Trot and Smile Munden because Campbell and Nakobe aren't ready. But you can see how deep that is when Campbell and Nakobe are back. So
there you go. So it's amazing that we went from John this time last year, and nobody disagreed with you. So people can't like hold this against you. We all were like, this linebacking group is terrible. Yeah. What is going on?
Well, the good thing
I don't
is
think they can hold it against you. I can't find a person last year who was high on the linebackers.
I haven't gotten much crap over the linebackers. So you're right. I think people real part of it is like even Zach admits and Howie admits, and I had no fucking idea. Even Zach Bond admits he laughed about his Pro Bowl incentive. He was like, "Why is this in my contract?" So when the player does it, I think it's a little bit. And even Vic said, yeah, he's like, because Vic got a lot of credit, and to Vic's, Vic's not full of himself. He's like, I didn't know. I just thought, this guy's got the instincts to play off the ball, but he didn't know. And Zach deserves a ton of credit for that. And I think most people realize that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I was hardly the only one saying the Eagles linebacker room.
You were not the only one. Absolutely. All right, last one, Johnny Mac, close it out. The best position group on the Philadelphia Eagles. We all know it, but I'll give you the honors, John.
I would argue the best position group in the National Football League, the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, and that's after losing Mekhi Becton. You got 4 Pro Bowl level players. You got incredible depth. I'm going to count up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I believe they have 14 NFL level offensive linemen. You can almost make 3 offensive lines of NFL level offensive linemen. I don't think I've ever seen a deeper position. Now, part of that is projection when you're talking about Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams and Drew Kendall, but those are legitimate prospects and NFL level players, especially with Jeff Stoutland. I don't think I've ever seen a deeper position group on an NFL team, ever. And I'm not even a big fan of Tyler Steen, but he's an NFL player.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I mean, how can we be nervous about Tyler Steen when he's next to, I think, 3, you said Pro Bowl, and I agree with that, 4 Pro Bowl. I think 3 of those guys are all pro candidates.
Yeah, 3 all pro level, 4 Pro Bowl. I just want, because Cam's not all pro level, but
no, I don't think so either.
He's Pro Bowl level. You have 3 all pro level. Even guys that people don't think about, like Darian Kennard and Kendall Lamb. Well, Kendall Lamb's already played, I don't know, 10 years in the NFL. So he's an NFL player. Matt Pryor, NFL player. Yeah, it is the best. Like I said, if I could give out all people who lose their minds over MVP and Super Bowl MVP and this and that, if I could give the MVP out to anybody, I'd give it out to the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, but you can't do that.
Yeah, I agree, though. I agree. I saw you speaking of that dumb list you were saying that another outlet made with the top Philly athletes or whatever. I saw one dude put the entire Eagles offensive line at number 2. I'm like, all right, that's a good one. I like that one. So I did see that one. That was good.
Well, yeah, but then you're cheating. You know, if you're doing a list of best players, and I don't know, I think it's best players in Philadelphia. I think it's
Yeah,
all
it was like
I
best
think it's all
athletes
4
in
teams.
Philadelphia or something like that. Yeah.
Like, I'm with you. I'd like to give him the MVP, but you can't. So like when we're doing our list,
Yeah, right.
Guess what? Lane Johnson's got to be on it by himself. Jordan Mailata's going to be on it by himself. Landon Dickerson's going to be on it by themselves. And they should all be in the top 10. And they should all be, you could argue all should be in the top 5, to be honest.
Yeah. Man, that's unbelievable, man. What they've done with this offensive line. It's the hardest. It's objectively speaking, what seems to me the hardest position group to build across the NFL, where teams try and try and try and fail and fail and fail. And it just feels like the Eagles have this never-ending well, just offensive linemen in this town. I mean, it's unbelievable. But thank Jeff Stoutland, thank Howie, thank the guys that have done the work to build up that group. As John always points out, you don't just draft great players, you develop them too. So the Eagles have done a great job at that. John, we got a couple of chats here. I can't believe it's already 9:59. We never even got to our NFC East topic, but we'll hit on that a little bit tomorrow. Let's make sure we get all of our super chats here. CB4, what's up, CB4? Why we keep hearing Justin Simmons every week? I don't know, CB4.
I don't know. It drives me insane, CB. I don't know. It's that time of the season. You got all these aggregators, and they go, "Oh, Justin Simmons still available." And he went on Kay Adams' show and said, "I want to play for Vic," and but they don't take into context what the Eagles are doing. What they don't want to. Now, again, if Drew Makuba, because he prefers Drew.
Yeah, somebody commented yesterday, why you keep calling him Drew? It's Andrew. So I was going to comment back, but just clarify why you call him Drew.
Yeah, he prefers Drew. So we asked him, and that's what he prefers. So that's what he gets.
Yeah, there you go.
And when I make a mistake and say Andrew, I try to correct myself. But, if it's August 15th and Simmons hasn't signed with anyone, and, Makuba's having a bad camp, and Sydney's having a bad camp, and Tristan McCullum's having a bad camp, a lot of bodies, and Andre Sam's having a bad camp, and even Lewis Scene's having, well, maybe at that point, but I would think people are not going to stop talking about Justin Simmons or Jair Alexander to the Eagles until they sign with somebody else, because it's the Eagles. And Howie's got this reputation. But for savvier people who understand what he's done this offseason, there are different stages. And as he said pretty consistently, dating back to Myles Garrett, basically he won't talk about players specifically, but he intimated, love to have the player. We're not in a position to do so. And he's backed that up with his offseason of Temu signings. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Everybody got 1 year. 12 guys got 1 year. Azeez Ojulari got $3 million. He was the highest paid. You're going to blow that up in the summer after you're disciplined the entire offseason? Does that sound like Howie?
No, not even a little bit.
So to answer your question, I have no idea, but they're not going to stop talking about it until until he signs somewhere else.
We even talked about him here in a little bit. It's good. All right, Fredo checks in. What up, Fredo? Ty Robinson will be a force as a backup, and the dude blocks field goals, says Fredo Vic.
Yeah, he was also fullback. But guess what? He's not going to play fullback.
I like listening to him talk. I'm with you. He was like,
it's very impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive kid. Really impressive. Pre-med. Really impressive. People are going to be impressed by his physical stature, his body. He tested very well. I haven't seen that translate yet, but we'll see. Maybe it will. But I also saw a bunch of his film. Didn't seem to translate that much at Nebraska either. So maybe he's got to lose some of the bodybuilder physique and get more of the NFL defensive lineman physique. Maybe that's how you solve that.
Yep, good stuff, Fredo. Appreciate the chat. Appreciate everybody for being here today. Great segments today, man. Talk Lane Johnson, talk Jordan Davis, and then ranked out the position groups. 3 great segments, 3 great topics, and we got great comments from all of you guys on each of those topics. So thank you all for your contributions to the show today. As always, hit that like button. Did we get to the threshold we wanted to reach? We did, 118. Thank you all. Hit that like. Maybe we can get to 150 by the time the music ends today. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on this Tuesday edition of Birds 365.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking at it. Lost my train of thought a couple times. Yannick Ngakoue, sorry. Apologies to Yannick Ngakoue. That's my last thought. Yeah. I didn't mean to send those strays, but he's a perfect example of a guy who maybe sacks aren't all they're cracked up to be at times.
Yep, no doubt about it. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. We'll catch you tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of Birds 365. Thank you, brother.
All right, thanks, everybody.
All right, there's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining us here on Birds 365. Great show today, everybody. Great segments, great